Hello, this is John, the Armchair Technician. I am playing a new game called Factorio, and I'm going to attempt to do a quick tour of this. And I say attempt, I mean that because I have actually tried this on several occasions, and I have not been able to make a recording under 40 minutes. That's how addicting the game is, even if you're not playing, if you're just demonstrating it. Alright, so here I am. This is what I call the start of my base. This is where it all began. I had a coal field here, and when you start the game, you get a pickaxe, and you get a pickaxe and some stuff. Now, obviously, I'm like about 50 to, or actually, I'm about 60 hours or so into the game, so I have a lot of stuff and a lot of things set up that I'm going to explain. But the way it works is you craft stuff, very similar to Minecraft, but then you go further, and each item you make builds upon each other. So you start off with like a stone furnace. Do I have any wood? Yeah, I have some wood. And you can make a stone furnace in your pocket, so to speak. And you can build a thing called a burner miner. This is what you would build at the beginning of the game. And you put a miner down, and you can rotate. The arrow is where it drops its stuff. But, I'm going to put it here. I'm going to pick up my stone furnace, and I'm going to put it here. And what you do is you simply put some wood in, or you can get coal, and it's going to start mining the coal, and it's going to drop it into here. And you put wood in, and it burns that ore, and it makes a copper plate. Then you can craft from copper plate. You can craft copper cable. And iron, it's a very similar process. You can make iron plate from iron ore, and if you take iron plate and put it into a furnace, you get steel plate and stuff. I'm gonna pick these up here. And what you usually do is you go around, you cut down trees, you fill it up so that they keep running, and then you cut down trees and you can make wooden boxes. You put stuff in. You can make things called inserter burners, which take wood or coal or other fuels, and they burn that to move stuff from like your furnace onto a belt, which takes iron plate and gears. You can craft a lot of this in your pocket. Some of it you have to craft in what's called an assembly factory, or an assembly machine. And the things that you have to build in an assembly machine, so first off, like, you have the miner and the smelter, your furnace, and you usually run around and you have a miner that's collecting coal and putting it in a box, and you take that coal and you fill up the furnace with it. And over here was iron, and this was my original my three fields. I had iron, copper, and coal, and a lot of the belts were here and stuff, and you'll see that it kind of remnants of that still in my factory. I've since moved on from that, and one of the first things you start doing is you build belt and stuff to move your coal to your furnaces and your miners, and then you move up the chain. You build something called an offshore pump, which pumps water out of the ground, and you make pipe out of iron and a boiler, and you feed that boiler with wood or coal, and that coal and that creates steam, and that steam goes into a steam engine, and that steam engine turns and makes electricity. And I've got a lot of that down here. And then you build telephone poles out of wood and copper cable, and then you can switch over from burner inserters to electric inserters, and you can also go from burning mining to electric mining. And each thing, some of it, to move up this technology tree, which starts here, you have to do research. You have to build science packs, and science packs, like the red ones, take copper and iron gear. And you build a research lab, which does research, and you research technologies to move up and up and up the chain. And each research you do unlocks more things. Eventually, you unlock a thing called green science, which lets you build even more stuff, and then you move up to blue science and military science, and so on. Alright, so I'm going to switch to map view. Now, like I said, I had all, iron and copper and coal here, and eventually I ran out of it. The first time I ran out of coal, I ran way over here. There's some copper, there's some coal, but essentially I found a coal deposit here, and I put some miners there to keep things moving. But what you really do, the first thing I ran out of was iron, and I ran out here, and I killed a bunch of the biters, which they will see some here. We'll see some eventually, but these are some dead ones, and you start putting down miners. Now, the first time I did it, it would look very haphazard and crazy looking, and then later in the game I learned about blueprints, and blueprints, people spend a lot of time researching the best and most efficient way to do things, and they create blueprints. And you can create a blueprint just by copying and pasting things down, and then you can save that as a blueprint. But and then there's people that they spend a lot of time, they spend hours just coming up with the most efficient way to do stuff. And so you lay down these miners, and at the beginning you don't have what are called robots. You have to research your way up to it and build them. But your end goal is to launch a rocket into space. I'm not quite in the late game yet, because I haven't got everything, but I am in definitely kind of a mid-game scenario, I think. And so the miners are all dropping onto a belt, and I've got 4 lines, 4 belts going into here, and they are feeding into these chests. And then at some point, I got train. When I first did it, I didn't even have trains. I had a car, and I didn't know how to drive the car. It's very easy to crash into things. But I would actually get as much of this in the car and take it up and feed it, because I was completely out of iron back home. But then when you get to trains, you have this load up, and this train, I guess it's full now, but it's actually waiting for the train at the unloading station, which I'm going to empty out before it takes off. I had to eventually do a coal station. Now, and also when you see these rails, when I first did it, I had a train with an engine on 2 ends, and it would run back and forth on the same line, and I started running into all sorts of problems, and I still have problems. But eventually I got it so that one line comes out, and then the other one's the return, and it's much better that way. They all have this same kind of setup. They're pretty identical. They're mining the ground for a certain resource, and these are fed into boxes, which when the train shows up, they get fed into the train. And so there's the iron. That was the coal train down below. Here's the iron train. Here's my stone base. These miners are not done with the blueprint. They're just haphazardly placed around, and they go into the same setup. And over here is my copper base. This copper outpost or base, whatever you want to call it, that was done with blueprints. These loading stations were definitely blueprints. My first ones, I just had a line running down each side, and only the first couple boxes were getting loaded. These use splitters to split it up so that it's pretty evenly distributed. I think if I remember, they load from the inside first, and eventually the outside get loaded. But when the train pulls out, these inserters are pulling equally fast from both sides. So there's that. It comes back here. I do have some intersections, which are with these lights, keep them crashing into each other. And I haven't had a train crash into another unless I was driving it by hand. What is this? This is my coal train. I don't know why it's sitting there. It should... Oh, that's an iron train. Oh, I have a deadlock situation. This should be moving. But for some reason, that is red. And, I mean, it should allow it to get up to here, but these are all red, so I have a problem with my signals, and this is a deadlock. And that's going to sit there forever until I fix it. I'm surprised. It should have, at the very least, this should allow that train to come down and park here and wait. That's part of why I put it there, but it's not. So something is broken with my signals, and I still don't understand the train signaling. And like I said, I originally started with one line going down to each place and back, and things did not work out. This is a little kind of a defensive outpost, which lots of laser turrets that keep biters like these guys, here's the base, from getting in. And yeah, this guy's waiting to go out, that guy's waiting to go out, he's waiting for the train to come back. That's a problem. And these are sitting empty. My iron's starting to run low. Yeah, these are really getting anemic. You want everything to be backed up, especially on your supply side. And but I am not going to fix that in this video because yeah, these trains are all waiting to leave. This is my loading station. The trains come in here, they unload into these boxes, and the boxes unload onto the belts. The copper, originally my secondary copper field was here, with these belts were. There were miners all over, and they fed up into here, and there's still the belt feeding there, but that copper stays empty. But the copper runs over to here, and feeds these two lines, and I have blueprints, yes, blueprints from Kitsch, again, that will allow me to run 3 additional lines. I've been good with 2 so far. Iron, I recently expanded it from 2 to all of them, and yeah, this line's running out. It's ran out of iron. This one's starting to run out. I'm going to have to fix that soon, but I'm going to do the recording. And then I run 1 feed of my iron back in here to make steel, and I've done 2 lines of that. I could add a 3rd line, and I just have a small thing making bricks, and that seems to be more than enough for everything I've been doing. If I need to, though, I can expand it out. And that's one thing in the game, is you really want to leave lots. You really have to keep going back and troubleshooting things, and you also want to leave lots of space. When I first started, I was putting walls. I had walls across here, and then I had moved walls up to here, and as I kept moving out, I had to keep moving my walls and tearing down walls so I could build, and I really didn't give myself enough space. They say that's the #1 mistake in the game, because you have this infinite map, and you really do it. Yeah, this is, like I said, this was my original kind of mining area. There's my stone and stuff, so I built stuff because of in close proximity to where the mining was. Okay, here's my what I call my military area. This is making bullets, which feed up into this chest. Grenades feed into here. Grenades and walls. I have walls coming in somewhere, or I used to. Oh, there they are. There's the walls. Originally, I had to bring the walls down from here, and they fed down and came on the other side of this grenade line, I think, and fed into here. And that makes military science, which I've got 6.8K. And then I would carry military science down to my research area and put them in this box by hand. And I'm still doing that, but I've got so much military science that I don't even need that it's not really a problem. Alright. So I covered that stuff. Now, these are cliffs, which there's a lot of cliffs on this map. They slow me down, but not until I got cliff explosives. And I had cliffs running through here that I had to blow up to make room. Alright, so coming here, this is a buffer. There's a buffer. The iron comes in, feeds into these chests, and then back onto a line, and I have a bypass to go around the buffer, because these inserters are fast, but they're also slow. And then steel comes down. You can see the steel's starting to peter out because the iron's petering out. This is iron ore, which I need for something down below. Yeah, there's my brick and my stone, and there's a small buffer there, and I'm making some walls. And you do like to see things backed up to your supply. You don't like is to see these gaps forming in the line. That means you're running out of things. And I think I still have over by my military, I still have some yeah, I still have like two steel smelters. Actually, I disconnected them because so that they can just run out, and I don't even need these anymore. I can use bots to deconstruct those two, and then some bots will come in from somewhere and pick those up. But I was building some steel here just for these armor-piercing rounds. There they come. But then I started feeding the steel from here, and so now I don't need that anymore. And eventually, as it will run out of steel, and from that side, but it'll continue to be fed from the right-hand side or the west side of the map. This coming down is what everyone calls their bus, and my bus is actually too small. I've got copper coming from that side, and I run the copper really far around, way off to the left, and then as I started to redo the bus and stuff, I started moving it this way, and I'm going to bring more down. But one guy, he keeps 4 lines of iron and 4 lines of copper coming down, and I only had room for 1, and I've kind of been shoehorning in some extra, but it hasn't truly been working. But the first thing I do is I have assembly factories taking copper to make copper cable, and that feeds over here with the iron to make green circuits. And green circuits are getting a bit anemic, but they're starting to come back. Although as the iron runs out, then they'll really go bad. And yeah, these iron gears are being made here. Not everyone puts iron gears on the bus. They build really quickly. So some people usually just put, if they need iron gears, like here I need them for these assemblies, so they might just put a couple iron gear assembly machines and feed those directly into the machines, or just make a short line. I decided to put them on the bus, and that seems to be working pretty good. The copper cable has at times gone short, and therefore it impacted the production of the green circuits. I recently upgraded these from yellow line to red because the copper was not getting to the end of this line, and now at red it seems to be going fast enough to do so. Coming down the bus, these are making belts, these are making inserters, and and these are splitters that tap off and feed into this. And this is by no means a efficient design. It's very spaghetti. I used to have I had some stuff building over here which I've removed, but the power lines are still there. These are trash boxes. As I get extra stuff, too much stuff in my inventory, if I fill this up, I throw them in these trash boxes. There's a lot more down here. Yeah, so there's the inserters. This is a robot port. At some point I was needing enough red belts. I just put a little factory off here to take these belts and the gears and make them. And down here I snuck in a repair pack thing. Some of the stuff you see damaged up here, like these, you can repair them with repair packs. Over here, copper and gears are making red science. Down here, inserters and belts are making green science. I snuck in a little belt or gun turret thing here instead of up there by the rest of the military stuff because I didn't have gears up there. And green circuits and plastic, which plastic requires oil production. they're making red circuits, and my plastic has been slowing down, and that's because the petroleum gas that needs to make circuit has not been producing fast enough. And, over here is another small little buffer of steel, and these are feeding, how much do I got in there? About 100 in there. These are making solar panels from copper and green circuits. I didn't need any belts below here, so I just fed a little bit into a box here. And these are little mini buffers for the copper and the gears. And here's a buffer for red circuits. And these buffers work like if this production slows down, if these are built up, then it'll just feed out of the boxes, which is pretty nice. Oh, I got some those stuck on that belt, but that's okay. These are substations, which are like the largest, they cover the widest area of for electricity, and then over here is underground pipe and regular pipe. Underground pipe takes like 5 regular pipe plus some, or no, it takes 10 plates and stuff, but you can actually run them a long distance, and pipes you cannot walk through, so using underground pipes really help out. and I'm using those, I'm popping those pipes here, and some feed into this little box and the rest go on just this line here, and they get pulled down in here to make engines, along with steel and gear. So I need 3 things. I need pipe, steel, and gear to make engines, and I put engines on the line, and I bring them over with these red circuits to make blue science, and I then send the blue science up to my research area along with the red and green, and the military science gets fed by the box. And for blue science you need engines, red circuits, and sulfur. And originally I was feeding all my leftover engines into this box, and then I split it off so that they went this way, and I was feeding my extra engines onto the belt, and it still hasn't emptied out, and that's been like days ago. These are low density circuits, which the only thing I use that uses that right now is some of the stuff that is built for my armor, and but otherwise I don't even need them. Later in the game there'll be more things that require them, but for now I do not. Let's see, nothing over here yet. These are laser turrets, and these are just batteries that can go into your armor, this type of battery. There is a Mark II battery, which I have built before, but every time I die, I have to make it again. So, I don't. And then these are accumulators, which store up energy when the solar panels are running or when the steam engine is running, and they discharge overnight. And this is my purple science area. This was my most complicated science yet. I also have to do the utility science, which is next, and that's probably going to be more complicated. That's going to need those low density structures. But purple science needs rails, electric furnaces, and productivity modules. These are building the productivity modules. It needs green and red circuits, and putting the productivity modules out on a belt. These are building rails, which need stone and iron stick, so I'm producing iron stick, putting that on a little belt, feeding that in for rails, and that's sharing a belt with the productivity modules. And then these are the electric furnaces, which need steel and red circuits. My red circuits are running low because the plastic's running low, so they've not been built very well. So I'm up to 1.1k purple science, which is pretty good. In fact, I have a programmable speaker here which sends me an alert, which is what's blinking down here whenever it gets over 200. And normally what I do is I take it from there and I run it up to and I put it in the science labs by hand. Later I'm going to redo my science area with something called sushi science, where you have one belt running around, and then you have all your sciences coming in and you limit how many go on the belt at a time, so that, like, say there's always 20 on the belt or something of each science. There are logic gates and stuff in here. There's deciders and combinators and green wire and this programmable speakers and power switches to turn off things when certain things happen. One thing I should do as I'm building up my solar is I should turn off my boilers whenever the solar is producing a lot. Okay, alright, let me get down here. Here's blue circuits, or maybe they're purple circuits they look like on my screen. And these are processing units. They're either blue or purple. I think they're purple, because this is blue and that's purple. And again, I only need this for stuff in my power armor, and which is like energy laser defense and discharge and PERT MK2 batteries and some other things. So right now they're just going into a box. Alright, and okay, I'll do them all last. Yeah, so that's my purple science. That was pretty complicated, and I'm gonna need room. I'll probably have to come over here in this area for utility science. And some turrets. This used to be my bottom line, and I moved it down here, and I put lasers there so I can clean these up. Cool. Let me get over here. Alright. Find myself here. Oil rigs. They're pumping crude oil into factories. That one's running. This one is not, but they're producing petroleum, which is needed for sulfur and plastic. And the petroleum needs to speed up a little bit. And I need to double up my, really increase my plastic production, because that's really impacting everything else down the line. These are regular gun turrets, making solid fuel, which is nicer than coal for running my boilers and other things. This is advanced processing. It creates heavy, light, and petroleum. And if one of these backs up, if they fill up, then the factory shuts off. See, this one is shut off for some reason. And usually my light oil backs up, so I have to keep extending the tanks out so that it doesn't shut off. And then I just started, even though I have no use for it yet, I started making lots of rocket fuel. I started making solid fuel from it, putting that in a box that's probably filled up. And I've been making, I've got these three storing rocket fuel, just so I can use up that light oil. And just because I need petroleum gas, and I even have something converting light oil into petroleum gas, and that's just been a problem. And lubricant is made from heavy oil, and then that lubricant goes over, and some of it comes over here to make electric engines from regular engines and green circuits. Electric engines and steel and batteries come down and make flying robot frames, and then the flying robot frames plus green circuits makes construction robots, and red circuits, which I actually clipped it so it would stop making these, just till my red circuit gets fixed, makes construction robots. And just one quick thing here. Alright, so I've got, up here, I've got that sulfur coming up from down here. Water plus petroleum makes sulfur. And I feed sulfur up really high, and I make sulfuric acid, which gets used to make batteries, and batteries and iron make accumulators, and sulfur and coal make explosives. And I can also make something called cliff explosives with grenades and explosives. And those batteries got used over here to make armor batteries and the flying robot frames and robot ports. Alright, so that covers most of that. This is a solar farm I've been building out using blueprints. This one is off by one. I did it as a demonstration and it didn't work out. But it's just a perfect, almost perfect ratio of solar panels and accumulators and substations and a roboport in the middle. And down here is Kitch's totally practical mall. The mall takes in red, green circuits, and it also takes in lubricant and water and brick and iron ore to build just about everything. Now, it's not mass producing, but it's good if you need stuff. So you come down here, you look at the mall, and you say, oh, I need a bunch of blue and this and stuff. And I put these all in red provider chests, which means the robots can pick it up. And when I realized how big this was, I was just amazed, because there's like the mall, and here's like the most of my factory. The mall is like a big portion of my factories. The mall just dwarfs it, and but it's been pretty handy. And I'm at 31 minutes. I think I've covered everything. I've actually done a walking tour, or a map guided tour. If I didn't cover it, this is power generation from steam. I started off with just this set here, and then I expanded up, and then I added another set, and then I kind of duplicated down here. And I need to I have a bunch of stuff coming over this way, because that's where my ore originally came from. And really, other than some of this what's needed here for these guys, I should move everything over here. If my bus was wider, some people make their bus like really wide, like from my steel. They have 4 lines of steel, 4 lines of copper, and then they have rows or columns and columns, so they'd cover from like where this steel starts to where this is as their bus. But I've got factories in the middle of that. And there's my mall, and if we look here, oh, that repopulated. I had some biter bases I cleared out, and I think they're back. And so zoom out. This is the overview again, and you can see my logistics network, everywhere the robots can go, the electronic network, the defense network, my pollution map, there's my train stop names. Let's zoom back in. And like I said, I do need to fix that, so I'll do that after the recording. And player names. There I am, right over there. And alright, this has been my shortest recording at 33 minutes. So I thank you for watching, and I'm going to end it here.